Hey everybody, my name is Ted Forbes. Welcome back to another episode of The Art of Photography. And today we're talking about the Minimalist Darkroom, or the Darkroom Minimalist. I'm not sure which I'm going to title this episode just yet. But either way, let me explain what I'm talking about. I moved into a new studio about 6 months ago, and some things have changed around, and I've had to rethink the darkroom. And I think this is a good topic to talk about here because I've had comments, emails, and even personal discussions with people who are interested. They shoot a lot of digital and they want to do some film stuff. And I think one of the most daunting factors involved with it is the space it might take up and how many chemicals do you need. And it just seems really confusing. It really is not. You can make it confusing, and I have done so over the years in various stages. But what I'm trying to do is to make it so basically, in my last studio, I had a large walk-in bathroom that had a washer-dryer connection closet right there in the bathroom. The thing's huge. And so I was able to set up a table, you got running water, and I could work and transform my bathroom very easily because you could just shut the doors on the closet when you weren't using it and it looks like a bathroom. My new place, I'm not that lucky, and I do not have those kinds of connections. So I've been trying to come up with ways that I can still get work done, I can still do good work, and I can push the envelope and do all my experimentation, but not have just this huge array of darkroom stuff everywhere. And I think this is kind of something that's daunting to a lot of people when they're thinking about getting into processing their own film and making their own prints. And what we're going to do in the next, this will be part one of this series, and I won't get into the enlarger and stuff today. I want to talk about developing film first. Just to show you, well, to show you and to also prove to myself how much I can get by with as little equipment as possible. And, you know, it's like this. You can think of it like, you know, just even cleaning your desk or, you know, rearranging your apartment a little bit. Just in general course of work in general. And in this case, I'm talking about darkroom work. You get into things, you do experimentation, you try new techniques, you know, and after a while you kind of start to amass a lot of chemicals and a lot of gear and a lot of stuff. And the reality is, just like a messy desk, you probably don't need it all. And what are you actually using, and what are you actually interested in doing? And that's where I'm kind of coming from with a lot of this stuff, because I think I can get it really minimal and still be able to produce some interesting work. So today we're going to talk about part one in this, and the topic that we're going to talk about is developing and processing film. And a couple of things I want to show you. To develop film, and it's been a long time since I've covered developing film in the podcast, but I've got some really good older tutorials on that, and I can link those below in the show notes. But without having to, you know, completely reiterate and regurgitate all that information, you know, essentially there are three chemicals, more or less, that you need for developing film. You need a developer, a stop, and a fixer. Okay, and what those do in order is the developer actually develops the film. It actually is what goes on the film that converts the silver and etches out the image and leaves you with what's left on the film. The stop bath stops the developer. It's the second chemical in that process. And the third one is a fixer, and the fixer fixes the film and gives it a little bit of, it makes it so it can last. You get longevity out of that. It starts to clean it up, get the silver that's not used off of there, all that stuff. Then typically you do a water rinse after that, which, you know, really isn't a chemical, so to speak. And then there's some optional things you can do. You can do a hypo clear if you want to clean up your negatives. You can do, what I do is LFN, a couple drops of that. And I cover all this in that older episode. And so you can see step by step how it's done. However, there is it's not a developer, it's a fixer that I switched to a couple years ago. And I know this is super nerdy. If you're a purely digital person, you're not into film, bear with me here. But anyway, there's a company in California called Photographer's Formulary. And they make this wonderful product called TF4, which is a fixer. And this is actually, this is not your grandfather's fixer. This is a newer solution that came highly recommended when I was doing some research. And TF4, it was designed, and I may have some of this a little bit out of order, but it was designed to get the purple stain off of the Kodak T-Max films and other films that have a purple stain in the negatives, and it does that superbly. It literally will make them so it's a, you know, gray-looking negative when you're done. It is good stuff. Now here's the deal. This is an alkaline fixer, and so the difference between this and a standard fixer is it will not agree with the stop bath. And so the process involved with doing this is what you're going to do is you put your film into the developer first, and you can't use a stop bath, so what you're going to do is just rinse it in water for a minute and then you go straight to the fixer. This actually eliminates more than just the stop bath. This actually eliminates the hypo clear if you're interested in that. I have gotten some of this is an empty bottle, by the way. But I've gotten some of the cleanest negatives possible since switching to this. People claim online when you read in various formats that there's a sharpness difference, and I don't know that they're any more sharp than other negatives, but it really gives a good result. But the key takeaway to our minimalist concept here is this is good stuff, number one, and number two, you eliminate an entire chemical process in your black and white development. So what we're going to do is use a developer, use water for the stop, and then basically go right into the TF4 fixer. Now there is a TF5 that's out now, and I have not tried it yet, so I don't know if I can recommend it to you or not. I'm sure it's awesome. Everything Photographer's Formula makes is awesome. They make old school developers recipes that are gone out of style or out of production, and they do wonderful stuff. And so combined with this, now this is an empty bottle because you have to mix it with 1 part this to 3 parts water to make your jug, so you need a gallon jug for that. The developer that I'm using right now, and basically let me go back a little bit. When I say I'm using right now, when I moved, I actually dumped all of my chemicals for the most part. And the reason why is some of them have gotten old, some of them I couldn't remember how old they were, they might still be good. And you know what, I thought, I'm gonna save the bottles that are nice, and I'm gonna dump everything, and I'm going to start over when I move. Also notice when you're going to dump chemicals, please be safe about that, because they're not good for the environment, and it could be bad. So there are ways to dispose of them. I won't cover it here, but make sure you research that a little bit. If you're really interested and want to geek out on a podcast, I can talk about disposal methods. But anyway, the developer that I'm using right now, because it's a one-shot developer and I had 2 bottles of this, is Agfa Rodinal. Now Agfa is out of business. There are rumors that it's coming back. I haven't seen hard evidence of that. But the Rodinal recipe can be found other places. So if you're on the B&H website or Photographer's Formula, you can buy Rodinal still. Other people have blended the recipe. There's Rodinal and a Rodinal Special, and I haven't noticed a big difference between the two, but I'm really mainly only familiar with the straight up Rodinal. This is a very versatile developer as far as I'm concerned. It's it's an old recipe. In fact, I think it may be on record one of the oldest ones that's kind of still in production. But it is a high accutance developer, which basically means in old school terms that when you use this on your film, you're going to get very sharp edges in a very detailed, that's kind of what accutance is, but it also makes it a little bit more grainy than some other developers. But there are different ways, methods, techniques that you can use Rodinal. And the two that I can think of is if you want a really beautiful grain to your work and you want to use Tri-X or something that's kind of a classic emulsion and get that look that a lot of the photojournalists had in the 50s, this is an excellent, excellent developer for that. You typically dilute this in water, and there's a ratio that you dilute depending on what you want to do. And it gets that look. It's absolutely beautiful. You can push, you can pull with Rodinal really nice. It's a very good all-around developer. I don't know if it's my favorite of all time, but it's definitely my favorite of the classic recipe looks that you want to get. The other thing that Rodinal does, and I will show you guys this in a future podcast because I haven't covered it on here yet, but Agfa Rodinal will do, it works really well with what is called a stand development. That's S-T-A-N-D. And a stand development, and I really want to start experimenting with this because I've seen some people get really good results. I've done it before, and typically I've stuck with the rule on it, and I've seen people break the rule, and I'm ready to push it because I'm pretty impressed with what's going on. Basically, what you use is a really high dilution of Rodinal. So basically, you use 1 part Rodinal for every 100 parts water. Okay, and we'll get into that when I show you how to do the stand. So it's just basically, the takeaway here is it's just a little bit of this and a lot of water, and it goes a long way. And what you do is you put your film, you put the developer into the film tank with the film in there at this high dilution. You do it at 20 degrees Celsius, and basically you agitate normally for the first couple minutes, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then you let it stand. And I've also heard of people who don't even do that. They just pour it in, do the first 1 minute of agitation, and then just let it stand. They walk away. Generally speaking, this works really well with low-speed films. So 150, 25, anything down there works excellent. I have not tried it higher because when I started doing it, people were always saying, well, it doesn't work on higher films. And I've actually seen evidence that it does, so I'm ready to experiment now. But anyway, it works optimally on these lower speed films. And what it does is it has what's called a grain masking effect. And basically, here's the deal. When you agitate, let's say this is your film, okay, and you've got it in the chemical, and here's the chemical, and you agitate it, it moves around, and it rests against the film when the water stops moving, or when the developer stops moving. And this is for any developer, not just Rodinal. And what it does is it starts to go to work on the emulsion. And what it does is it starts to wear down a little bit. And that's why you agitate to get fresh developer against the film. And that's essentially what the technique is. Now, with the stand process, you're literally just letting it sit there. And it has a different way of developing the film. And basically what it does is by the time the highlights are developed, it starts to exhaust itself. So you don't actually blow the highlights as much. And then it starts to work on the shadows and some of the darker tones. Of course, they're lighter on a negative, but you get my drift. Anyway, so Rodinal is an excellent developer for that. And what it does is it actually masks a lot of the grains. So if you're using low-speed films, you get what almost looks like what you'd get off of a digital camera at a really low ISO. It's very clean, there's very little grain, a lot of sharpness, a lot of great tonality. It's a very easy negative to print with. It's a very easy negative to scan if you want to use a hybrid process. So stand development I am a big proponent of, and the deal is it takes a while because you're not agitating. It's going to take longer for the film to develop. So typically one of the things I've used with this recipe, so to speak, is I've used T-Max 100, which is a great film made by Kodak. It's a modern emulsion, but remember we're getting rid of a lot of the grains, so I'm not looking for that look in the grains. So anyway, T-Max 100 works great. You put T-Max 100 in there and you do a stand for about 45 minutes, and I will agitate normally for the first 4 or 5 minutes of that, and then I will basically give it a turn or two every 30 minutes or so, and about 45 minutes later you get something that's workable. I will cover stand and we will look at some stuff and we will see what the results look like on negatives, and I will do that next time we talk about this. I'm just working on darkroom. So what you can see here is I've gotten this down to 2 chemicals: developer, water, and then finally the TF4, which is the most awesome, amazing fixer. I never thought I'd be excited about a fixer, but this one really is good. The rinse time goes way down. You need to rinse for maybe, I think it recommends 6 minutes. No, it's a little wrong. I think it's up to it's about 6 minutes in the fixer, and it's 15 minutes of rinse afterwards, and you're done. This makes processing film very easy. So part 1 of our minimalist darkroom, the only equipment you need, and you can keep this in a box, and which is exactly what I'm going to do at first here. But let's say that, I think there are 2 types of people when we get into this darkroom category. There are those that do what is actually a hybrid process where you're shooting film, scanning it, and then you can put it on the internet and all that stuff, but you're never really making a print. You could make a print digitally with an inkjet printer or something like that, but you're not using an enlarger. So if you just want to get into film and do that, this is perfect, and this is how little you can get by with. I'm actually going to walk over and I'll show you everything we need, but basically it's going to be a jug of this that's a gallon in size, which is not that huge, and this Rodinal I mix as I go. That's it. You could add another developer as long as it's liquid-based pretty easily. You could get another gallon jug and add another developer that way. I'm at a point these days where I really don't want to be having 1,000 developers on call at any time. I've done that, and there are subtle differences, different developers. What I'm interested in now is what developers do I like that I've gotten good results with that I'm going to continue forward with. Rodinal's one of them, and I may balance this out with one other that's a little faster and a little more modern, but that's going to be it. And so basically you just need your tools for development, which are going to be basically the development tanks and reels to put your film on. Dark bag, because you're going to need to be able to do this changing bag in the dark. It looks like a windbreaker with no neck. You just stick your hands in the side and you do all your work in there and it stays in the dark. And then you're going to need your 2 chemicals. This is a really easy kind of solution here because you can keep all this stuff in a box, pull it out when you're going to do your development, do all your developing, and then put it all back away. So if you have roommates, if you are married, if you have family you live with, you can keep all this pretty sane and not have it out all the time and bother people. You do need to be clean about it, but you need to be clean either way if you're running a darkroom. So anyway, that's really important. Before we end the podcast, let's walk over and let's look at what all we've got in our little kit here for just developing film, so you can see how minimal we are at this point and how little it really is. If you were interested in these items, I will put links in the show notes below. I don't get kickbacks from Photographer's Formulary, but I recommend them. They are so awesome. Everything I've purchased from them, and a lot of it's kit and a lot of stuff you need to process yourself, but it's all just brilliant stuff. Anyway, so let's go over and I have the enlarger set up as a table right now, so we're gonna look at that. We will cover the enlarger in another episode, but let's go look at what is all involved and how minimal we can be with just being able to process negatives that would be either ready for printing if you desired or scanning if you wanted to bring them into a digital realm. So come on over and let's have a look. Okay guys, what we are looking at here is the Minimalist Darkroom setup. I know I'm not in the frame, but you don't need to see me, you need to see what I'm working with. So that's what we're rocking here. First off, we have this is a 1 gallon glass jar that I bought from a used camera store, or a camera store that sells used gear, and it has this cool thing, something about 1978 on it. Anyway, I like the glass jugs because they tend to get less funky, they last longer, and it's nice because this amber color, you can still see the chemicals, but it's not subject to light rays aging the liquid within. So anyway, this is the TF4 that I mixed up, and I showed you the concentrate bottle earlier. So what you're gonna do is take that concentrate bottle, you mix 1 part of that with 3 parts water. So I just used the same concentrate little jar there and use it to fill this up, put 3 of them in there, and you get a gallon of TF4. One thing I failed to mention to you earlier is TF4 is replenishable, which means you can use it again. So when you're done fixing your film, you pour it back in here and it will replenish itself. It does get funky after a while and you will have to pour it out and make new stuff. Excuse me, not pour it out, dispose of it correctly, and you will need to make new stuff. Typically you'll know because it's clear when it's fresh and it starts to get cloudy and murky when it gets old. TF4 will give you enough warning so it's not all of a sudden go bad on a roll, so you'll know you need to change it because it's starting to get cloudy on you. That's basically what's to know. So anyway, that's replenishable. The Agfa Rodinal unfortunately is not. This is a one-shot developer. You use it once and then you're going to have to dispose. So anyway, that's the deal. So Agfa, and typically the other thing you're going to need is this thing I'm actually holding. It's not down here. This is a small syringe that I bought. You can get these at any camera supply like B&H or something like that, and it has a plastic tube that goes on the end. This is really handy. I've got measuring cups over here. So typically to develop film, you're gonna need about 400 to 500 milliliters, depending on how big your container is. And if you're mixing Agfa Rodinal, for instance, we're gonna do a stand development, and I need to mix 1 part Rodinal to 100 parts water. Well, 500 milliliters over here, I need 5 milliliters of this. I can't measure that in one of these measuring cups. That's where the syringe comes in. So you basically stick it in there, pull it out till you have 5 milliliters rocking, pull the tube out and squirt it in the water, you're done. Very easy to use, very cool. Sorry, that was just water that flew out because I used this the other day and cleaned it. So anyway, that's what we're working with here. So this really is all you need on this table here to develop a roll of film. I just lied. You might want some film clips so that you can hang it to dry, but they're tiny. I failed to show them to you, but I will show them to you next time because they're in the closet. I'm not going to stop. So anyway, just to describe what everything is, this is TF4, that's the Rodinal. This right here is a Patterson tank. And the Patterson tank is really nice because they're made of plastic, but it's an easier way to get your film on a reel. The problem, this one is the correct size for 35 millimeter. The problem with 35 millimeter with the metal reels is frequently they're off and you will never be able to get film on there, and you just wasted your money buying them. So I simply don't trust them unless you're going to spend a lot of money and buy nice ones. You don't have to buy a Patterson tank. This is the little thing that agitates, so you put that in the top. And this is kind of cool here because this is actually light tight. You twist the top and pull it out, and your reel goes in there. You pop this on in the dark bag. Once you've changed it, it locks. And now I can pour chemicals in and out, water in and out, and it doesn't let light in. It's got a little edge around here that filters out light. So that is absolutely wonderful. The Patterson tanks are fine. Don't get caught up in what tank to use. Just get something that works. A couple measuring cups is all you need, and this is it. And then we looked at the syringe. Oh, and the one last thing, you do need a thermometer. And because chemicals, usually you want to be really specific. Black and white is forgiving, but it is a good idea to make sure your temperatures are consistent. And so you either need to ice these a little bit. Basically, I'll put them in put a bunch of ice in the sink, put the stopper in, put your chemicals in, and measure it. And when you get down to 20 degrees Celsius, you're ready to go. You can pull it out, or whatever you're developing at, whatever temperature you've determined. So anyway, it's nice to have a chemical thermometer. But that is it, boys and girls. That is the whole shoot and match for 35 millimeter. If I wanted to add, and here we go. So still staying minimalist, hopefully. That's the 35 millimeter kit. If I want to add medium format to this equation, the metal spools work just fine for medium format. I prefer them when it comes to medium format, and here's the can that goes inside. So that will do 1 roll of medium format film. I have one that's twice this high. We're keeping this minimalist, folks, so I'll be able to do one at a time. If you really must, or you really have the need to do more than one at a time, then you're going to need to get a bigger tank or more of them. But you can see they don't take up a lot of space, so they're okay. And then finally, and I'm sorry this is dusty because I haven't cleaned it yet, I haven't used it yet, but this is a tank that will allow you to do 4x5 sheet film in. So if you're working with large format, I got these used. You can find them on eBay, online, in a used camera store. Basically what this is, it's a metal hanger, and it allows you just to slip your 4x5 film into that. It's harder to use the dark bag, and you need to be in the dark for this. I'll fill this with the chemicals, and I'll probably actually get 2 of these, one for the developer, one for the fixer. And so let's say I'm developing, and I've got 5 of these things. You can do 5 negatives at once. And basically what you do is you just dip them into the developer, and they've got, you know, hangers on them, so they'll stay put. And then when you agitate, you don't shake anything. I just pull them out of the water and put them back in. That's all it is. You don't want to do too much agitation. So that's important. So, and we'll get more specifically into 4x5. But as you can see, with a few additions here, this is all I need to develop 35mm, medium format, or 4x5 large format film. I could easily add 8x10 to this and probably keep it in one box altogether. So anyway, minimalist setup, and we are going to get into printing in the next part that I do on this. I don't know if it will be tomorrow, but it will be soon, probably because I'm going to order some supplies. But we are keeping things very minimal here, and we're going to see how minimal we can keep all this as we go along. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I know this was kind of a long one. This once again has been The Art of Photography, and thank you for watching.